Hey, this is Dylan. I'm going to be going through the production of my new song, Worth the Time. Thank you so much for the support. I've had a lot of people message me saying they really like this one. Um, so yeah, this is kind of how I made it. And I'm kind of going to go through in order of how I actually put the song together, at least to my best recollection, because this was quite a while ago, but I'm pretty sure that I started with this little pad and I chopped it up a little bit. It's just a splice sample, and it's in the choruses. So I know that sounds weird that that's kind of what sparked everything, but I think from there I added the acoustic guitar, and then actually it sounds like the drums are in the background of the acoustic guitar, so I must have added the drums first. So let's go there. I also added this constant pad, which is just like gives it some in the left ear. In the left ear gives it some emotion, a little bit more emotion. It just makes it a bit more dramatic. Yeah. So originally, when I made this, the file was called Space Beat, and that's just because of these two like space effects that I added. Again, they're just splice samples. But yeah, and it's really just this one, but it just kind of sounds like you're in space. If you know who Tor is, he uses a lot of those, and I think it's kind of like a mix between Tor and Jeremy Zucker is kind of how I pictured this song. And so this was a main reason of why I decided to go this route through the drums. So snare, super simple. There's even some reverb on it, which typically don't do. Kick is like a super distorted, like heavy kick, crunchy kick. And then the hi-hats, actually what really gives this thing the space feel is this loop right here, this like glitch loop. So this oak screen pack in Splice is probably like the pack I use by far the most, and it's just, I think like everyone uses it. It's just like so good. But this is kind of what that sounds like. And that combined with this space effect right here, really gives it the space feel. So from there, it was just adding hi-hats, a little bit more perk stuff on the side, and then some like little drum fills. So with the kick, that's the majority of it, but it's the other stuff that kind of gives it makes it a little bit less boring and gives it some direction at some points going into a new part of the song or just like a new part of the chorus. So one of those is this little drum fill, again from the oak screen pack. I think it was, I don't remember exactly how the original sound sounded like, but I guess I chopped it up a little bit. Probably not much, but that's this thing right here. And then another thing that's really huge in that is this huge hit right there. And that combined with this is kind of what leads you into the second half of the first half, the second half of each half of the chorus. And then there's a slightly different fill going into the second half of the chorus and then into the rest of the song. So and that sounds like this. That one's even more simple. It's just like 2 hits. Bum, bum, bum. So, overall, the drums sound like this. So, I don't know. It's kind of like the cuts at the end of each like section, I guess, that kind of make it sound a little bit tighter overall. So that's one tip if you haven't figured it out by now, but cut like a beat or half a beat before the verse ends, or sorry, the measure ends, and then it's kind of give you that feeling of, oh shoot, all this stuff went away, and that sounds really cool. So yes, so that, all the drums combined with the pads sound like this. Right there, add the guitar. So typically, I'd say more than often, I'm not even making a song with like an idea in mind. Sometimes I am, and those tend to work out pretty well, but kind of what you have to do, at least in my case, I'm not like a super genius and everything I make is good. So I make a lot of horrible things, and then some things I end up liking and end up wanting to record vocals on. So I usually do start with like the beat side of it. And so the vast majority of what I did on like the first day that I made this was the beat, so this, and obviously I added some things after the fact, like days after, months after, but the vast majority of the bare bones of this track is all of these together. And then I originally had this bass, so right now you can hear it's like the low cut filter is really high, but originally it was, you know, just a normal synth sub bass. And if I played that with everything, that's going to give you basically everything that I did on and this is probably way louder than it used to be, this sub bass, because I added a different bass eventually. But yeah, the reason I have it still in here and why it was cut so high, is this bass has like width on it, so it's got space on the sides, whereas typically bass is like a really mono thing. And so I just wanted to have all of my bass feel like it was wide, but the actual low parts of the bass are mono. So how I process this bass, I'll just play it first all together. If you're wearing headphones, you'll be able to hear better. But so that I just played the root note of the chord on my guitar, or sorry, on my bass guitar, and then I have 2 of the exact same audio files. I'm not sure if this causes phasing issues, so what I did was I delayed one slightly. I'm pretty sure it does. The reason I say I'm not sure is because what I did is I low cut one of them higher than the other. So one of these, this top one here is, this one looks like it, yeah, so I put a bass amp on here, so it's, this signal is slightly distorted, has some drive on there from that amp, and then this other one, the second one, is like really compressed and only the low end. So I low cut, I low passed this one at about the same frequency, and then I compressed after that, which means I compressed the low end after that. So I'm just compressing the hell out of the low end, so it's like really even, so I can get a really even complete low end while also having the high end of the bass guitar, and that can be a little bit more dynamic. So that's what it sounds like just with those, but then this really gives it the sub bass that I was explaining earlier that I low cut pretty high with the width, gives it the width. So you can actually hear it on the sides now, and that just did a lot in the context of the overall song. So that's what all those sounded like together. So that was basically what I did on the first day that I made the song, and then I added some vocals as well, and it was just the chorus. And so let's just get into it. Let's do the background vocals first. So my face is wrong that I want to react this. Just some harmonies, and what I've been doing a lot more is it's over. You can hear from this one right here is that I'm sitting here in my chair, and my microphone, typically where I record, is like 10 feet that way, and I'm usually like standing over there. I like sing into the mic into a blanket basically, so it's like more dead sounding. But when I'm sitting here on the chair and my voice is reflecting off of all the walls and stuff, it kind of gives it a much more natural, like roomy sound rather than using like a room reverb. And also it's just easier than using room reverb. So it's over. I've been doing that a ton lately. Yeah, nothing's going. It wasn't worth the time. And you can even hear the drums like in my headphones. It wasn't worth the time. Slightly. So yeah, I've just been doing that a lot, and I think it sounds really cool. Just gives it a little bit more of a bedroomy feel, I guess. And then I also use that on the main vocal during the chorus. So this part right here. Yeah, you'll be fine. I'm sitting right here and I'm screaming a little bit louder, and like singing like it's part of the verse or like it's part of the chorus, but I'm just over here and not actually next to my mic. Honestly, I think I did that because that melody or something just came to my head after I had already recorded this stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sing it here, and I'll sing it here so I don't forget it, and then I'll sing it in the mic later. And then I just liked it so much that I just never did. So vocal chain, so let's see, it's going to be pretty similar to what I used in my previous videos, but I can go through it really quick. So auto-tune, it's cranked pretty high here, and I had to like, basically whenever I record vocals with auto-tune, it like makes a bunch of pops and stuff, and some of that is because of my mic and it's like slightly broken, but some of it I found out was just strictly because of auto-tune, and so I like tried to update my auto-tune to see if it would fix it, and it didn't. But that's why there's no like flex tune and stuff on here. Typically there is a little bit of that, and it's also cranked pretty high because this right here. Was it worth the time? Oh, I'll just play it without it, but it's really horrible. So just beware of your ears right now. Was it worth the time? So yeah, that's why. Was it worth the time? I tried to get a new take of that, but I just I gave up eventually. My voice was hurting.
Wasn't worth the time.
So yeah, typically I'm recording a little bit quieter than I think normal people do. I think usually their waveforms are going to be pretty... I guess this is a little bit bad of an example, but typically I compress my vocals so much that I like to have it a little bit quieter into it. So this is just an LA2A for... it doesn't really do anything. It's just like I'm running it through just to give it a little bit of character. As people say, I can't really tell, but some people say to do it, so I just do. All buttons in, straight on the track, 1176. A little bit interesting, like how much I'm compressing it here, but I tried like 4 and 8 for the ratio, and I think I just have heard this version so many times I just don't like less compression. RVox, a little bit more compression. L2, it's a limiter, more compression.
I was ready for.
I don't really know if it's...
I was ready for.
I'm hitting it 3 dB too, so I'm just compressing the hell out of my vocals.
I was ready for.
Sometimes you have to adjust this frequency depending on like where you're singing, how high or low. And this EQ, I don't even think it does anything. Okay, I'm boosting the highs a little bit actually, and I guess there's a slight saturation going on. Then I'm boosting the highs again over here with the channel EQ, and this EQ like actually sounds pretty good, the Ableton stock one, so I typically use this for just boosting my highs. This effect chain, this effect rack, I don't think I'm using at all. And then Soothe,
I was ready for.
I'm barely using it. I'm liking it less and less over time. It just sounds like, I don't know, it makes everything sound like soft and like just so I would say if you're looking to buy Soothe, you definitely don't need it. It is versatile though. You can use it on like any instrument. So that is one nice thing about it. But on vocals, I'm just not loving it anymore. And for background vocals, the only thing different on my vocal chain is just like I'm low cutting a little bit higher. So it's like 160, whereas the other one was like 80, 86. I don't even think I showed it. But where are we at here? Right here. So this is like, yeah, 86. It's just a low cut. Because you don't need that much, especially in the background vocals. You just want the low end of the lead vocals to get through. You don't really need it in the backgrounds. And I'm also not sure if you're supposed to do this, but I cut the mids a couple dB just overall on the backgrounds, but just to give the lead a little bit more room again. And then, yeah, what I did here, looks like I did it to all of the lead vocals, but if you know who Andrew Scheps is, he's a mix engineer who's done like Adele, Hozier, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah, so he does this thing where he will put 2 EQs and a compressor in series. So basically the first EQ, he will get rid of the lows and boost the highs. So there's a lot of high-end information. And then what this LA2A has is if you move this this like knob here all the way to the left, I think, it's only compressing the top end. And then basically he'll compress the hell out of the top end and then go back, bring the lows back in and get rid of some of that harsh top end. And kind of what that does is it basically lets the vocal like pierce through in like a pretty dense mix. So, and he does that in parallel. So there's the normal vocal,
There was always something more.
and then this is just the compressed one.
There was always something more. Had a chance, you knew it gave.
So you can tell that there's a little bit more
There was always something more.
like high end going on there. And so together,
There was always something more. Had a chance, you knew it gave you
That's what I
something to ignore, but you can't see it through. It would have
just
had
gives it
it.
a little bit more high end, which just helps it.
Always something more. Had a chance, you knew it gave you something to ignore.
I just needed that because my vocals weren't sounding quite as good as I wanted them to. I'm by no means a good mix engineer, but I've just tried to learn a little bit more because my old ones were like pretty bad. Not that this is good, but it's a little bit better, I think.
Oh, I can give myself.
So yeah, I have some. I'm just saying random things just to make it not boring. Anyways, so let's get into the first verse quick. I mean, really the only verse of the song. And there's some extra things that are in here.
You say what you want then.
This pad is coming in.
Unhealthy, no, it's just selfish. No.
Just gives it some direction. I think there's a couple like weird drum things going on. Just to keep it a little bit interesting rather than just a kick and a snare. I'm still not very good at this type of deal, but a couple extra things that I added also was Jeremy Zucker has like he put a sample pack like on his Instagram story a while back, and my favorite part is this little, not this thing, but this is like in Cry With You. If you'll hear it now in Cry With You. It's in a different key, but this thing right here. That's like my favorite part of this song that I did. I didn't do it, but I just added it.
Isn't that unhealthy? No, it's just selfish. No. There was always something more.
It just gives it direction into the heavier, louder part of the verse. And then there's a little bit of a riser.
Back to yourself, isn't that?
That's pretty much the verse. This
Had a chance, you knew
part
it.
of the verse is just like pretty much the same drums as the chorus, and then they just cut out at the end of it.
The time. Read my face, is it wrong that I want?
And so for the verses after the first one, I added like a little bit more guitar. So for example, in the second chorus, sorry, I think I said verses, I mean choruses. So that I just played chords on the guitar. I think they probably sound similar to that. And then there's like I can't remember what plugin I used, but there was like a wobbly preset in one of like the guitar plugins that I use, and so I just used that. And then also there's this like really bright guitar on the left side, and it sounds horrible on its own, but if you add them all together, this one sounds cool. It's like super distant, like shimmery. And that's in the second half of the second chorus.
So yeah, nothing's going right, but you wouldn't take a second, no.
And then this little thing is like I'm pretty sure I just like played a wrong note on my bass, and then yeah, I just like used Ableton's Beats mode and just pitched it up so it sounds a little bit weird and has the da 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 thing instead of just being one continuous note. But yeah, and I'll get into that one in 1 second, but a little bit farther into it. And then this is the like bridge part. So what I did here is I had like a bass. So that I just played on my bass, but I wanted it to sound like a guitar. So I basically cut it really high, low cut it really high, and used like a guitar amp, simple guitar tone on the Guitar Rig preset. And yeah, they have really good presets if you don't know anything about guitar amps and stuff like that, like me. Yeah, just quarter notes on the bass again, or whole notes. And then at the end of this sort of bridge section, actually really quickly before we get into that,
All the friends you made, now I'm just a fucking number.
thing is this. So it's that same bass thing that I was showing earlier. Or is it this thing? But it's pitched down and distorted. So what I did here is so basically this is called parallel processing. And basically what it's doing is it's playing the dry signal, which is this right here. It's super quiet, but you can barely hear it. So that really doesn't matter. But it's also playing this distorted, like super distorted signal, which is a decapitator, which is all the way up and punish on. So it's super distorted, along with this one, which is like a little bit darker one. But then when you put it together, it like sounds, I don't know, I love that part. Now you'll probably hear it in the song now, which is pretty cool. So that is about the first half.
Said you saved all the friends you made, now I'm just
And then the second half,
read my face.
so that's just the most Jeremy Zucker guitar chords ever, with some reverse of the wobbly ones that I did earlier. And then this is where these weird drums come in. So these drums are like more lively compared to the rest of the drums in the song, but I think it's a little bit of a jarring difference, I think, but I liked it, so I just kept it. Basically I just took some drum loops, chopped them up a little bit, and made this like fill thing, this like drum section. Let me add the guitars. So what that is basically I just had like two different tracks, so I could put them in different locations, like in your ear, and then that's for like the snare and the kick from that original, like the first drum loop that I found. And then there's this tom, which is just so good. It's just then this is just so distorted, like probably another punish mode on for the decapitator, and like this is probably compressing it, all buttons in again. It's just compressing the hell out of it. So yeah, basically that is that little section there. And like I said, I know they're weird live drums combined with the mostly like not super organic sound. I guess the hi-hats here sound like pretty like organic, and even the snare, but all the other ones are not. That's pretty much the song. I guess in the last chorus I added that. I mean, I guess we can get into like my master chain if you want. Actually, let's go through the vocal effects. So typically I'll have like a set of like standard vocal effects. And what I mean by standard is just like a typical like reverb and delay, just like
Read my face, is it wrong that
on the vocal track, not on it, but
I act this way?
so a reverb, like a room shorter reverb, and then this is the delay. So they're pretty loud right now in the chorus, but they get quieter. That just later. They just give some space. And a little bit of a pro tip, I guess, is if you low cut your reverb before the actual reverb, and this is on a send. So basically it's the same thing as I was saying earlier, where the dry signal is playing on its own, and then the 100% reverb signal is also playing on its own, and they play together, so that reverb can kind of coat around the vocal while the dry vocal can like be in your face, kind of. That'll just help your mixes be a little bit less muddy. And so what I was saying is, if you low cut this, you don't need all the low end in a reverb, right? It's just gonna like muddy up your mix with all this like low end, like long stuff that's always going on. So if you just cut it low, cut it higher, it still sounds like the reverb. It just doesn't have the low stuff that you almost never hear and just ruins your mix. So like I said, not that I'm good at mixing or anything, but that's just something that has helped me. Okay, one thing that's also a vocal effect is in the bridge here that I never went through.
Read my face, is it poor?
But kind of that has that like shuddery feeling. I used a tremolator for that, just like Sound Toys tremolator, but I think like I think Logic has like a stock one. I'm sure Ableton does too. I just never took the time to look for it. But basically what it does is it changes the volume of the signal, so it'll go like higher and then lower. And if you think of like a sine wave, typically that's how it's done, is it's going like higher, lower, higher, like slowly, rather than like a super, like a square wave where it's either on or off. And so what I kind of did there is I made it start more like sine wave, more smooth, and then I had it get like choppier, so at the end it was only going like straight up. That is either on or it's off, so it's either playing or it's not. And that's kind of why it gets So I'll just solo that. So here, you can hear it's going like that. And then the second trunulator comes in and it still starts a little bit smoother, and then it gets a little bit a lot harsher. So it's more like the square wave that I was talking about earlier. So yeah, that's basically like the normal vocal effects that I use. That one's not typically normal, but, and then what I like to do with like all the other random stuff, like for example, like, that was not the one I was thinking of. But if you hear that, like, in the song, what I do is I take the over from here, and then I will basically record that into its own track and then put a ton of effects on that, and then record that track with all the effects on it so I can control when it starts and stops like really abruptly. So for example, it just stops like right there. So I did have like a little bit of reverb on it, so you can hear it hang over a little bit, but it just gives you a lot easier way to control the starts and stops. I mean, you could just automate the track on and off if you wanted to, but yeah, that's how I want it. You just, in Ableton, you just go like this. You can turn it off or on whenever you want. But I think it's just a little bit easier to just work with the thing, and you can just deactivate it or delete it, and then if you didn't like that, you can just put it back. So yeah, I guess for example, this was long, but I cut it right here. So that's like about it. I mean, there's some like random, I use Crystallizer a lot. It's from Soundtoys. It's like a granular delay. That gives us just like the constant stuff going on. And then I also like, on a lot of this stuff, I pan it. I use like an auto pan, or I'll, for example, on this one, this over, you can hear it started like in the left ear and then it ended more in the middle. So again, on Ableton, in Ableton, it starts 34 left here, and then towards the end of it, it goes back to the middle. Just kind of gives it some movement in the song. And then there are some extras, I guess I added. I told you about this one. That one's cool. The drums. So these are the original drums that I did like on the first day, and they have some different samples in there than what I showed earlier and what it sounds like now, but it's pretty close, and it was good enough for like the filtered out portions of it. So what I did is I recorded those drums basically into this track, and then I used RC20, which I use a lot on my drums as like a transitionary thing, or just to make them sound a little bit different. I like to use the drum break presets and then tweak them a little bit, but that's what I did for this one. If you want it. So it sounds like that versus this. So you can tell it's a little bit more mono and just like filtered out. Yeah, I guess on my master here, let me get rid of the stuff I'm not using. But kind of what I did for this song and what I've been doing a little bit more often is this usually isn't here, but what I did was I bumped the low end in the middle. So this is a mid side EQ. So basically what that means is you can separate portions that you want louder. So if you want just the high end of the sides to be louder, for example, right here, you can do that with a mid side EQ, and it doesn't affect what's in the middle. So that just kind of gives it a little bit wider effect. And then, for example, I took a little bit out of the sides in the middle, in the low end, and then I bumped a little bit of the middle on the low end. That's not doing all that much. This is like a mix bus compressor, basically.
The time like this way was more than I was ready for. One bad taste in your mouth.
So it's hitting like maybe 3 dB at the slowest attack. Auto release ratio 4.
Like this.
It's just gluing together the mix a little bit, without having it be like a super harsh like limiter, even though that will be at the end. And this is a little bit weird, but I took this from Andrew Scheps as well. Basically, I made it slightly wider, just overall in the mix, like the entire mix. So without that,
Yeah, you're big. Yeah, you're big.
it honestly makes a pretty big difference. So this is Ozone Imager. It's free from Isotope. And then from that,
Yeah, you're big.
I boosted the low end a little bit and boosted the high end quite a bit. It's a Pultec EQ from Waves.
The time.
And then after that, all there is the limiter. I think it's probably pretty hard. So
And it's over. Never had to find your way. You get mad at yourself. Yeah, nothing's going right, but you wouldn't.
So I probably should have tried to control my transients a little bit better.
And it's over. Never had to find your way. You get mad at yourself.
5 dB, which is a little bit high.
And it's over. Never had to find your way. You get mad at yourself.
This is the first chorus, so it's a little bit quieter than the last one. So it's probably like -8 LUFS or so on the last one. And basically this limiter, it's pretty expensive, but I think it does a really good job of not having very much distortion. Whereas like I was using a Waves limiter, and you could tell when it was like getting pounded. Like if you would hit over when it would start to limit, like anything over like a dB or 2, like it was pretty distorted. So this one sounds just like a little bit better. Lets you get louder a little bit. It's a little bit cheating, and it's not the right way to do it probably, but it worked enough for me. So
Yeah, you're big.
yeah, basically without the master chain, it sounds like this. It's gonna be quiet, but if I turn it up.
Yeah, you're big. Fine. Wasn't worth it.
Versus this is weird.
Yeah, you're big. Fine. Wasn't worth it.
And also, this is just like a loudness meter plugin. It just shows you what LUFS you're at, basically. The limiter actually shows it. I used this on my chain before my limiter showed me what loudness I was actually at. So I think typically people are even hitting even higher than like -8. They're probably going -5, -6. But I'm not quite good enough of a mix or mastering engineer to do that yet. Or I just need to control my transients probably a little bit better. Because basically what happens is on those transients are just like, for example, like the kick and the snare when it's getting really loud really quickly. Basically this limiter has to cut the loudest parts of the song and bring them down. So when those transients are really loud, it's going to dip the sound quite a bit. And you can see that this is literally what it's doing. So it's dipping it 6 dB right here, which is a lot. So don't do what I'm doing. Get someone else who knows better or figure out how to do it better. But yeah, I think that's about it. Let me know what else you want to see from these, if I'm missing something. I know I've done quite a few of them, so if you are interested in watching any of the other songs breakdowns, the only one I haven't done recently is When's the Last Time, but I could do that one if you guys want. I just gotta dig up the project file. But anyways, yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I really do. I appreciate it a lot. It's insane to me that people actually listen to the music that I make. Like, it's honestly just insane. So, yeah, thank you guys so much.